Greetings, my name is Chamomile, and this is an exploration of the entire galaxy sector by sector. Today, we're talking about the Calamari sector, also known as Mon Calamari Space, in 12th Cerulean Spear Command. Mon Calamari Space is about as close to the platonic ideal of a Republic sector as you're going to get, even if it does come with a big asterisk. The sector capital is Dak, also known as Mon Cala, and all the other planets are colony worlds of the native species of Dak, planets like Gamant, Ruisto, and Mintuine. The sector is the domain of Dak and its native species, the part of the galaxy given over to them to rule according to their own traditions and represented in the Galactic Senate by a senator. The big asterisk on that is that Dak is home to no less than 5 sentient species. The two you're most likely familiar with are the Mon Calamari, who are dominant on the coastal and surface waters and thus have the most interactions with the outside galaxy, and the Quarren, the Mon Calamari's main rivals who live much deeper in the oceans. These two are very well attested to historically, so much so that it's weird to talk about them being well attested to historically. Like, yeah, there's definitely strong evidence the Mon Calamari exist, like, for example, that Mon Calamari guy who lives a few doors down from my apartment. But there's also reports of a small population of telepathic amphibious creatures called the Amphihydrus, who allegedly took over Dak at one point long ago, but subsequently lost power to an alliance between the Mon Calamari and the Quarren, who set aside their differences to depose the telepathic tyrants. I'm skeptical of this one, mainly because you'd think these Amphihydrus guys would show up again in galactic politics ever, and they haven't. Also allegedly native to Dak are the Whalodons, a sentient species of whales whose size and lack of opposable thumbs means they don't participate much in wider galactic society, and sentient jellyfish who can barely even communicate with most sentient species. The evidence for these guys isn't amazing, but there's a straightforward reason why they don't show up more often in the historical record, so I don't find it nearly as hard to believe that these guys exist as opposed to the Amphihydrus. The Mon Calamari and the Quarren do not get along. While the Mon Calamari colonized Calamari Space because they lived on the surface, could see the stars, and like so many species before and after them, they eventually decided they were going to go check those things out no matter how much space was in the way, the Quarren got in on it because they caught wind the Mon Calamari had started colonizing other planets and didn't want to fall behind. Because their civilization exists almost purely underwater, the Mon Calamari didn't contact the Republic until near the end of the early Republic era, not long before the First Sith War. It didn't help that Calamari Space is right at the edge of dark space, which is a somewhat remote location even for a sector that's near-ish to the Tion Cluster, which is a hub of dense population and civilization out in the Outer Rim. This remote location was only half the reason the Mon Calamari didn't join the Republic until all the way into the High Republic era, though. The other reason is that the Quarren were and are dominated by a culture of paranoid xenophobia and didn't want their planet in the Republic. Once the Sith War started, the Republic was happy to have the Mon Calamari as allies and tabled full accession to the Republic for generations. The sector didn't see a whole lot of action in the Sith Wars. The Sith had a fortress on Taral 5, but it wasn't a major colony of the Mon Calamari or the Quarren, and the Sith never had control over a major world like Dak. The militarization of the region did have an impact, however. Mon Calamari didn't join the Republic until after the Ruusan Reformation, when the lack of a central military soothed Quarren fears of foreign military presence on their homeworld and colonies. It probably would have happened a lot sooner if the Republic didn't have fairly significant military presence there because of the Sith Wars. The Quarren and Mon Calamari would go on to be on opposite sides of the Clone Wars, but would stand together in the Galactic Civil War. In both cases, the Mon Calamari decided to pick what seems like the worst possible side of the war, and then they just made it work. During the Clone Wars, Calamari Space was on the doorstep of the Tion Cluster, the capital of the Confederation of Independent Systems. Sectors like Gallus, capitaled from the Twi'lek homeworld of Ryloth, tried to maintain neutrality under far less dire circumstances. But although the CIS did support a Quarren takeover of Mon Calamari, the Mon Calamari were ultimately able to defeat the Quarren and hold the CIS off for the duration of the Clone Wars. It helped a lot that the Hutts unexpectedly sided with the Republic. But, Hutt space doesn't start until a few sectors trailing of Calamari Space, even if we give them the most generous interpretation of their fuzzy borders. So, Calamari Space was well and truly surrounded. The Republic was able to send some support via Hutt space, most famously Kit Fisto, and repelled multiple attacks from the CIS. Their capital in Coral City was briefly overrun, and after seizing it back from the CIS, the Republic agreed to give the Quarren a separate representative in the Galactic Senate in exchange for the Quarren rejoining the Republic. The Mon Calamari picked what seemed like the wrong side and made it work anyway in the Galactic Civil War as well, openly rebelling against the Empire soon after the destruction of the first Death Star. They were consolidated with the Quarren at this time, both of them supporting the rebels over the Empire, and they were far away from any Imperial strongholds. But on the other hand, while you probably think of the Outer Rim as being rebel territory for most of the Galactic Civil War, the reason we think of it that way is because the Mon Calamari openly seceded from the Galactic Empire, the Empire sent a fleet to subdue their rebellion, and they just lost. This was among several victories in the Outer Rim that led the rebels to attempt the Mid-Rim offensive, which ultimately failed, but Dak never fell to any Imperial counterattack. They were, effectively, the first world of the New Republic.